Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the January Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee meeting to order. First item of business is to approve our minutes from our last meeting and call on Vice Chairman Commissioner Gooch.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is on the agenda, Commissioners, is something we look forward to every year, is our meeting with our state delegation. We're happy to have I guess all of them except for Representative Womack with us today. He sent me an email and got called out, I think probably out of the country for work flying, so he sends his regrets and wishes he could be here with us. I think, Commissioners, you all kind of know this drill. I think what we'll do is we'll go down the line. I guess we'll just start to my far left with Senator Tracy and let him just kind of give us an update of what's going on that he sees, priorities, and how they affect the county, and we'll just move down the line from there. There's a little switch on there.
Got it. Thank you all for having us again. We always enjoy coming to visit with you each year. Let me tell you, coming up in 2014, I'll be very brief. The number one word that we're going to be talking about, that you'll hear us talk about this year's budget. With the revenues are down a little bit this year, or down below projection. We think they're going to come back, but right now we're going to have a very tight budget year. That's one of the things, as you know, we have to balance a budget just like y'all do in Rutherford County, and we will be working extremely hard to make good decisions on the budget. Let me just say on transportation issues, that I'm chairman of transportation, that we're looking very good as far as where we are in transportation. We have no debt on our roads, no debt on our bridges. We're one of the few states in the country that has no debt on our transportation venues across the state, so we're very pleased about that. We always ranked in the top 4 or 5 in roads in the country, so our contractors do a good job, our TDOT's doing a good job, so we look forward to keeping that status. There's so much growth right here in Rutherford County, though. We just cannot keep up with the road situation, improving our roads, because we're growing so fast. But we meet with TDOT pretty regular. I know some of y'all have been involved. I know Mayor Burgess has been involved with meetings, and that is a very important issue for Rutherford County, because roads are very important for economic development. So you're going to hear a lot about that. The state of Tennessee is in very good shape financially. Our pension's in good shape. We're one of the lowest, we are the lowest debt state per capita of any state in the country right now. We're always ranked in the top 3 or 4 business-friendly states. So we've got a lot of good things going on in Tennessee, so I'm very pleased about that. But this year's number one thing that you're going to hear about as we go through this session starting next Tuesday, January 14th, will be our budget. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, my name is Dawn White, District 37, North Murfreesboro, half of Smyrna, and a little part of Laverne. Made it through my first session, and I just want to tell y'all I have enjoyed working with all of the commissioners here in Rutherford County. Many of you have contacted me with your concerns over the last year, and I think we have a great working relationship, and I'm just interested in hearing what your concerns are. Of course, I think we all have the best interest of Rutherford County at heart. We wouldn't be here giving our time and wanting the best for Rutherford County. So I know we can all work together for the betterment of Rutherford County. Of course, education reform is key. We're doing wonderful things here in the state. And then, of course, jobs and the economy is another thing that is very, very important. And I know y'all feel that as well. And, I just think we can really work together to improve Rutherford County. It's one of, in my opinion, and I know you have the same, one of the best counties to live in the state, but I know we can even make it better. And so whatever I can do for you, please just let me know. Many of you have contacted my office over the last year, and please continue contacting me, letting me know what your concerns are.
Representative Sparks.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Mike Sparks, 49th District, represent North Rutherford County, Smyrna, Laverne, North Murfreesboro. a lot of issues on the table coming up. We'll probably get out maybe, I'm hearing April the 6th. Someone mentioned that date the other day, which seems really, really early to adjourn. But I guess some of the needs that, as a former county commissioner, that I see is some of the mandates that y'all are often talk about. And I serve on local government. Representative Carr is chairman of the local government committee, and I know Chairman Carr understands some of these issues, and I often say, if we're going to pass something, we better find a way to fund it. Don't just put it on y'all's backs and expect y'all to find the funding mechanism for it. But House Bill 1475 has been a pretty big deal, as y'all know, and the what you call forced annexation. And I think many of y'all represent not only rural areas, but you represent some municipalities as well, just like the others of us do in the House. So it's a tough issue. The chamber, they see it as kind of maybe curbing economic development. I really don't see that right now, curbing that, because you can still take in commercial. The homeowners can still opt in to be annexed if they want to. But it is a big issue. It's a big issue for people in the rural areas, as y'all know. We had a good meeting today with TDOT, and I want to commend Chairman Tracy for helping organize that, and commend the new town manager of Smyrna, Harry Gill, for helping put that together, and Mayor Reed for also working on that. That's on that new I-24 exit that we hope to try to move forward with, and it gets down to funding. As you know, it's all about the dollar many times. The drug issue, is a big to me. I think we've got to try to find some solutions, and I want to commend our sheriff that's back here, and I know him and I just attended the graduation, or it was a Christmas event for the inmates' kids for Christmas, and I appreciate the sheriff having a heart for that, and having a heart for trying to turn men's and women's lives around. Many people may not think it's an issue that affects them, but it does, because they pay for it. The governor himself, I think I shared with y'all last year, our prison budget increased $46 million last year, $46 million. We can't continue to fund these things at the cost that we funded historically. We've got the good things going forward in the state, of the new science building and the Motlow expansion in Smyrna. Jefferson Pike's moving forward. It's a big issue for Commissioner Jack Black and Commissioner Will Jordan in that area, and Commissioner Stevens here, because there's been some bad wrecks, and unfortunately when they are wrecks, they're a high probability of being a fatality. So they're in the right-of-way acquisition phase on that, and that's moving forward. Wheels of government oftentimes turn slowly. But glad to be here, and y'all call me if I can ever be of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, thank you again for allowing us to come before you every year. I look forward to this opportunity every January before we start back. I used to do this in 4 counties, and I only have 1, so I'm really glad I didn't have to drive to 3 other counties since we have redone all of the lines as far as reapportionment is concerned. But Senator Tracy, I think, led off by saying that this is going to be a tough budget year, and when it becomes a tough budget year for us at the state level, then it also trickles down to each one of our cities and counties because of the state shared revenue that comes in. Our numbers right now, we are behind projections for the first 4 months. Of course, we start July 1 just like you all do, but year to date, first 4 months, we were $123 million off of projection. Most of that is coming not from sales tax, but from F&E tax. The F&E, in talking with our chairman of finance and the committee that I sat on, he told me a week before last that it may not be as bad as what it appears to be, because many of those industries and corporations paid in more last year than what they paid in this year, so they're taking a credit this year on the F&E tax. So it may equal out, but we'll have to wait probably 6 months or so as we get into the budget year. A couple of taxes that we're still moving forward to eliminate in Tennessee, we put in place and taken a bite out of it each year, taking a bite out of the apple. One is the death tax that we're planning on eliminating by 2016, and also the Hall income tax on senior citizens and the investments they've made in their 401ks and their stocks, etc. We're going to eliminate that, the Hall income tax. Also, we are reducing the sales tax on groceries, which will help many citizens around here. It's not a lot, but when you total it all up, it's another issue that you will all have to look at when it comes time to look at your budget, because in that one chunk, it may make a difference in what your income is by reducing the grocery tax. It's going to be an exciting year, as Representative Sparks said. It'll be very short. That'll be the shortest in the 14 years I've served down there that we've gotten out, if we get out by April 6th or April 1st, as both speakers have agreed to do. Last year, everybody said that we wouldn't be able to get out by April 30th, and we did. There were actually many people at the plaza were putting money into a hat, taking bets that we wouldn't get out, and we did. So I think that this being an election year, you'll see a much shorter time that we spend, and if we get out by April 1st, it will be good, because it is an election year. Everybody wants to get back home, and anytime we're down there spending more time, people feel we're spending money. So thank you for the time and inviting us out today.
Senator. Representative Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. Are the mics on?
Yes.
Thank you. In addition to the things that my colleagues addressed, there will be some local issues that I think that are going to be of particular importance to this county commission. As you know, the urban growth boundary that was negotiated in 1998 is rapidly approaching expiration, and the local government committees are tasked with looking and reviewing those particular agreements between cities and counties. And that in particular came to our attention, as Representative Sparks referenced earlier, in the legislation by Representative Carter out of Ottawa, Tennessee, with giving property owners some voice in regard to their property being annexed by the city. And after meeting with County Commissioner Association and various local county governments, there is a need and an understanding that maybe through the course of time, the urban growth boundary needs to be revisited now before it expires in 2018. So that's something that will be looked at very closely. In addition to that particular issue, there's an initiative regarding homeowners associations and those HAs that in those agreements, and to what extent those HAs are being regulated by the state. I know there's some legislation that's going to come before the legislature to deal with that. There have been a couple of occasions here in Rutherford County where homeowners, in particular HAs, have shared some disgruntlement with the way they're being addressed, and I'm sure that we'll be taking a look at that as well. Obviously, like Senator Ketchum said, wine and grocery stores, and also, finally, not least of which, we'll probably have to take another look at the County Finance Act. That's basically an initiative that does several things. Counties would have to establish central finance department and employ a qualified director for that department, and to go along with that, establish an audit committee and purchasing committee and these investment committee and these kinds of committees to ensure that the county government is being run appropriately. Fortunately, most of these, if not all of these issues, have already been addressed by Rutherford County. The challenge is at the state level is not every county addresses these needs in a fiduciary way at the same level that Rutherford County has. So the Rutherford County Commission and the mayor in particular to be applauded in taking a leading role in that. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the counties in the state, for whatever reason, have been able to do so. So we'll probably see that bill come back before the General Assembly. And that would be about it for right now, but I'm sure you'll have some concerns, and I look forward to hearing your concerns and addressing those. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. From the committee, any comments? Commissioner Farley?
I guess, Representative Carr, something that you just spoke of on.
Got to push to talk.
Okay, I don't sit up here that often. Well, you talked about where Rutherford County is doing well on way we're running our business here in Rutherford County. There are some other areas that are not doing that across the state. My question is, Senator Kelsey has brought up, I seen on TV the other night, has brought up some kind of, he may be introducing a bill where local governments are going to have to get state approval for us to go out here and go to the bond market to build schools, to build, to go in debt. And it's something I heard on the news the other night. Do y'all know anything about that?
Yeah, that is based on the bond rating, and there's some concern with some, Commissioner Farley, there's some concern with some municipalities and county governments about their ability to fund the interest rate on the bonds that they've already borrowed. And again, that is some of the slower growth areas where their facilities and facility needs are greater than their ability to pay back, especially on those bonds. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the state takes the position of one size fits all, and I don't believe that situation could be attributed to Rutherford County. I don't think it's meant to be attributed to Rutherford County, but some other counties and municipalities where they're struggling to fund what they don't have any growth, but they've got to fund old facilities, dilapidated buildings, police departments, sheriff departments, fire departments, and they're struggling to keep up. And they're borrowing money, and quite honestly, they're having difficulty getting traction and paying that back. And so the state doesn't want to be on the hook for having to pay off those bonds if they should find themselves in default. Now, from talking to Justin Wilson, there is not a city or county in the state at any level is in threat of default. Okay, I want to make that real clear. But I think what comptroller is trying to do is be proactive so these counties and cities don't get in that situation. But I don't believe the situation that Senator Kelsey's talking about at all can be applied to Rutherford County or Murfreesboro or any other cities inside Rutherford County.
So if that bill does come to, is dropped in the hopper, is there any way that like Rutherford County or someone else could opt out of that?
Well, if that bill comes in front of me in my committee, I'll read it close enough, because if it hurts Rutherford County, at the very least, I'd be voting against it, okay? But I don't think I want to understand why Senator Kelsey thinks it was necessary to get the state involved if there's not another way of dealing with some counties or municipalities that are having trouble with A, borrowing, or B, paying back the bonds that they borrowed. Does that make sense? And I'd like to understand why we need a one-size-fits-all for all 95 counties and the various cities in those counties. I haven't read the bill, and this is the first time I've heard of it. So I think it's something that going to need to be taken a close look at.
Let me follow up behind Representative Carr on that. That is true, the statement that Representative Carr made from Comptroller Wilson. However, at the current time, there are no counties that are on a watch list, but we have about 11 or 12 municipalities in our state that are on a watch list. There are concerns, but you and everybody else has heard of cities in California going bankrupt. The county in Birmingham, Alabama went bankrupt. So it's one of those that we will proceed cautiously, and you can't pass a piece of legislation that just affects one or two or maybe those 10 counties on the watch list. It has to have statewide application. So we would welcome your input. The thing is, who then becomes responsible in the event that one of those municipalities does file for bankruptcy? Does it fall back into the county? And then what happens if a county goes under? Then it falls back to the state. We're all in it together, so it's something we have to be very cautious as we move forward. And I agree, we'll all look at that piece of legislation before it affects Rutherford County.
I just seen it on the news, and it concerned me from what I was hearing, so that's why I'm bringing it up tonight.
I don't think there's any attempt to usurp your authority and what has been delegated to you over the years, but these are different and unique times, and we just have to look at things. They're not the way they used to be. So we have to at least be aware of it.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Well, on that subject, I think the state needs to kick in some dollars then and help us build some schools and some buildings that we need, you know. But anyway, we can go a lot further on that. Maybe some of our lottery bucks or something like that. But anyway, maintenance of effort. I bring it up every year. Maintenance of effort. A lot of these smaller counties, you know, maintenance of effort probably doesn't affect them. Then again, it very well could affect them. But as a budget member and budget member for a number of years, you know, we think we got a pretty decent budget headed south, or headed north rather, and you know, to the full commission, and then we've got the maintenance of effort to deal with. It just seems like the state can help us out across the board in this maintenance of effort deal, where, you know, you take these smaller counties that you know, they put their budget together and they're not growing as fast as, say, Rutherford County or Hamilton County or Shelby County or something, you know, or Nashville, Davidson County. And then we're the big four, big five or whatever has got this maintenance of effort deal that just seems like it's really almost a budget killer, you know. I know that stopgap's in there to protect and to help, but then again, Big Brother with the state, you know, stay out of it. We're maintaining our budget. We're asking the taxpayers for their dollars, and we're trying to spend them wisely. But then you put basically an unfunded mandate kind of thing on us that we have to continue doing this maintenance of effort every year. That and we're, like I said, the big five or whatever. You know, we're going to do that. We're going to maintain and take care of our departments that we put our money in. Any comments on that, and are y'all going to address it? It hasn't been addressed in the last 2 or 3 years I've brought it up.
Commissioner Sandlin, maybe it's time we do take a look at that, much like the BEP funding or the higher education funding. You know, we've gone in education and looked at the distribution of that. I saw a thing just recently talking about growth and where the projections of Rutherford County within the next 20 years were supposed to be larger than Hamilton County and Rutherford County. So that puts us above Chattanooga from that perspective. So maybe that's something that we look at. But I'll come back and ask you, before you talked about maintenance of effort, you wanted money for schools. You wanted us to chip in for that. Maybe, you know, re-looking at the calculations throughout the state and how we divide those funds up and how we collect them is maybe it's time that we take a look at it.
Well, you know, the square footage of a school now, and, you know, we just built a $50 million high school, actually 46 million, I think that's probably what it was, more accurate, but, and top notch, you know. I think the biggest high school in the state of Tennessee, I believe, offering a numerous amount of choices for kids that don't want to choose the college route or maybe choose the technical route on the tech side, and it's awesome. It is awesome. Proud to provide that, and I think the state guy came down, took a look at it, and was very excited, you know, where they're thinking about taking the vocational that we used to call a long time ago out of play, and they really don't need to do that. So we've hopefully somewhat changed their mind. Which, in that realm of talking about the school thing, what about the teachers deal and the cap? And if our school superintendent, if it's allowable, Mr. Chairman, to have him get involved with this, what is that about? My wife was a school teacher. A lot of friends of ours are school teachers, and it's drawn some question up. What are y'all getting ready to talk about as far as capping the school teacher salary and the raise type thing? I know just enough to be dangerous. So I know the school superintendent probably knows what's headed that way, and maybe y'all do too, if y'all can shed some light on that and what's coming forth.
Well, I don't know what the governor's planning to do, and he hasn't given his State of the State address, and I'm sure he's holding back on, you know, he's been talking about increase in salaries for teachers, and I'm sure that will come out probably in 3 or 4 weeks, whenever, well, usually around the 1st of February when he gives a State of the State address. I don't know, and that's something he'll have to present to both houses.
This was a cap in your educational, whether your master's or whatever, that was off the regular beaten line that we normally deal with how we work that and how we do
That
that.
came
So-
from the State Board of Education, and that did not come through the legislature, and that was a proposal by them to do that. I'd say that'll be looked at coming up. And yeah, you're exactly right. If I remember right, they were trying to, if a teacher wanted to go get their master's, and they wouldn't get paid for that additional educational, unless it was in their subject matter. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think.
I think there's a little more to it than that. And I don't know
Yeah,
if
but that was part of it. That was
Yeah.
part of it, and that was done by the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education did 3 things over the summer. That was one of the 3 things that their proposal was to do. That did not come through the General Assembly. So I would say there'll be legislation dealing with those kind of things when we come back in January, in a couple weeks.
Well, I personally want to thank each and every one of you. I know some other commissioners have some questions, and the mayor. We thank y'all for working hard for Rutherford County, and it is for the betterment of Rutherford County, like what Dawn said. And we appreciate y'all being there and fighting for us. If we so choose or want to have something sent to the state, what's our deadline of us getting that in to you? It's usually pretty tight, so we need to be talking about it now and getting things in line if we're going to be sending you something.
In the House, the filing deadline looks to be, at this point, the first week of February. So if you have a bill that needs, now there will be some exceptions to that.
Right.
But don't count on the exceptions. Just if you have something, just get it to us before February, and you're assured that it will get filed. And if I might add, there was a little bit of confusion last year, and I'm not sure where it originated from, and it doesn't matter. But if you have something that comes from the county, I would suggest, instead of just sending it to all of us, send it to one that you've talked to, saying with the agreement that or with the understanding that they're going to carry it. I know that last year there was a couple of occasions where all of us got the same bill and nobody filed it because there were no instructions to go along with the filing bill, and that didn't come from the county directly. But my point is there was just some confusion. So if the county has a bill, I might suggest that if you've talked to Representative White, then of course she would get the bill, and you might want to copy Rick and myself and Mike on the bill to ensure that it gets filed properly. But I just want to make sure it gets filed in a proper time frame.
I would just say from the Senate standpoint, of course, you have to have a sponsor in both houses, but key off of the date from the House, because we do have an extension in the Senate for a non-bill cutoff after all bills are supposed to be in the House. So if we just go with the House deadline, then you're assured that you're going to end up picking up a Senate sponsor, okay, at that point.
And I want to add, there's no deadline on bills affecting the charter.
That's correct.
So that being the exception.
And then also, last session, it was a 15 minimum for a House member, and so that does limit who, maybe how they have their 15 bills filed. So also talk to people and ask them, have you got your 15? Would you be willing to carry this bill? Because just submitting one, if you've already got your 15, it's very hard to get it through.
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things real quick. I want to return to Mr. Sandlin's question. Has the calendar changed just a little bit? Is there more going to happen in the first couple of weeks than has happened in the past years? Is that fair? That's not good or bad. I'm just asking the question.
Yes, Commissioner, yes. We're moving much quicker now. I'm chairman of Transportation. We're going to start moving bills the first week we're there. We go in on January 14th, and we start our committees the next day, and they'll start moving things pretty quickly. So we are moving a little quicker than we have in the past. That's correct. So if you have things, you need to move it to us as quickly as possible.
Commissioner, part of the reason for that is this is the second session of the 108th, and the second session of the 108th doesn't have that organizational period that lasts typically 2 to 3 weeks after we come in. So we don't have that 2-3 week period after we gavel in to organize. So there'll be no organizational break. So when we go in on January 14th, we begin business immediately, as opposed to going in, taking a break, and then coming back in. So you're correct, but that's the reason why.
I wanted to ask you on private act matters. If we had a private act that, well, it could really be about anything, of course, I suppose, but I have in mind bipartisan elections as far as the county commission is concerned. If we had a private act, which I understand has to pass by 2/3 majority, let's just say this summer, let's just say then, Representative Carr, you said send it to somebody, one person, and copy others, and I'm with you on that. If that happened, where should it go?
It should go to the representative that you've spoken to, or representatives that you've spoken to that agreed to carry the bill. And the reason I would suggest you do that is because we get a lot of requests, and that ensures that your bill gets filed. The reason I suggested you copy it is in the event that, for whatever reason, they've reached their limit, like Representative White said, at 15, then somebody else can come in and offer a slot or something like that. That's just a safety net. But I would just have a conversation, either verbally or through email, and then follow up with the legislation so they're expecting it. And I'm absolutely sure it'll get filed in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Carr. Third item, I want to return to something Mr. Sandlin spoke of just a minute ago. One of my favorite newspapers, the Daily News Journal, I didn't bring it with me, but stated pretty much that education was the #1 priority of the governor, period. That was the #1 priority, which frankly comes as a real shock to me, but that's what the newspaper said. And I have numerous questions, none of which I'm going to ask. But the director of schools and the assistant superintendent of finance are with us tonight, and he has requested to speak. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put Mr. Odom on our agenda and suspend the rules, and if he so wishes, to speak to the legislators and to us. I put that in the form of a motion, yes.
A second.
In a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very well.
Mr. Odom, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you, Mr. Sandvik.
I am Don Odom, Director of Schools for Rutherford County. I'll follow up on your question, Mr. Sam. It's a differentiated pay plan.
Okay.
I think that the legislature passed a few years ago, and the state board did follow through with that. So effective with the 14-15 school year, every school district, public school district in the state of Tennessee must submit a differentiated pay plan. The real changes in it are basically the state in their minimum salary schedule is no longer recognizing anything above a master's degree. The EDS, the doctorate, the MS plus 30, they're not recognizing that. They're also not going to recognize any time above 11 years. Typically, the state salary schedule went to 20 years. Some local districts did some more of that. We are working, our board will actually meet Wednesday night. We have to submit a plan to the state, and then the state will decide whether they approve our plan or not. It may require additional state board action. Rutherford County for itself, and I can't speak totally for the board, but we've looked at it at least once already. We're going to look at coming back and putting something in at years 15 and at 21, or 16 and 21. Just think longevity, try to hold on to people. Another thing that bothered us quite a bit with the salary plan that came out of the state, there's no increases for teachers between year 1 and year 6. And I think of that young teacher right out of college that may have a student loan, having to rent an apartment or something like that. And nationally, not true in Rutherford County, but nationally, 50% of the teachers leave in the first 5 years. So if you don't do something to try to help those people with some raises during that period of time, I think you'll lose them. Another thing districts are having to do is be competitive. You're now really in an open market with that. So you have to look at what you can do to remain competitive in that. So we're going to look at doing something with that. Another thing that we are probably going to do, we're taking a look at effects. And basically we're going to track time for teachers, which is the state retirement system. That's number of years service. We're also going to track effective years. And that's based upon the principal's evaluation plus their value-added scores. And basically, for a teacher to gain a year in effective in teaching to go up to the next step, they're going to have to score at least a 3, 4, or 5. So that's one of the things. And there are some other districts that are doing some things like that too. We didn't build in right now a reward system for 4 and 5 because, as you know, legislators, there's not a test for a large number of teachers. Still about 40-something%. Now, the state will tell you 50 or 60%, but if they do, they're counting the first grade and the second grade test. They're also counting something for art and all. That's really a portfolio. It's not part of the evaluation system. So a lot of them just still do not have a test that's an end of course or something that pertains to that. So, I mean, I'll be glad to answer any questions if you've got them from anybody in the commission. That's your steering committee.
Well, I don't know how I said that question a while ago, but, you know, my wife hasn't been a teacher since 12, so I wasn't asking really on her benefit, but I was asking for a lot of teachers out there that, you know, with the experience and the knowledge and the leadership of our schools, we don't really want to lose that. And it's almost kind of like a punishment type deal for someone going and furthering their education and getting a doctorate or a master's is what my 2-cent opinion was, to knock them down or not give them any extra for bettering themselves to better our students to have a better Rutherford County. So, I mean, I just didn't understand that, what was coming through there, and if it was a for sure thing or what do we need to do to step in here and say, you know, it ain't right, and let's try to work something out in the middle here. So.
State minimum salary schedule will go through the masters. We in Rutherford County are going to propose that we put some monies in for, we're probably going to put the doctorate and EDS in one track together, at least some there to do that. We're going to try to build in something for ours that have already started in the program. You've got people who have already invested several $1,000s, so we're going to try to probably do some grandfathering, which we'll bring to the board come Wednesday night, so that these people do not lose money if they've already invested in it, you know.
And I think one big thing you said, the 11 years is where it would cut off from the state or whatever. I mean, we have...
And again, there's a lot of talk. The state is not sending us less monies than they sent us last year.
Okay.
No teacher can make less money than they made a year ago. So I don't want to confuse that.
Okay.
Down the road, what will happen, I don't know. You know, but as far as the state minimum salary schedule, and Rutherford County pays above the state minimum salary schedule, you know, basically, if locals want to pay more, they can, but again, if you can't find enough within what the state's already sending you, or basically what you would like to do from local or something, then you're kind of caught by some of that. And I think Tennessee, I did hear, because I was part of the BEP committee, Tennessee is already one of the fastest growing teacher salaries in the nation already. So I'm not sure that's necessarily new, and it's simply because those of you, thank you to the legislature and the governor, did put some monies into teacher salary when the downturn was going on across the nation. So, I mean, the proposal is not to be one of the highest paid, but one of the better growing ones across the nation, and I think we may already be there.
Well, I appreciate you. I know you got your hand on the pulse, and matter of fact, I've referred some phone calls to you. So you've addressed it very well. I appreciate it. And to our legislators, let's keep our fingers on the pulse there and what's going on, because, I mean, a very important role here that our teachers have in our community as well as everywhere in the state and otherwhere. But we've got to take care of our experience and our knowledge there and not just throw it by the wayside. Thank you.
But we did do the plan to our teachers. The teachers could vote on pieces they liked or didn't like, that sort of thing. And we've met with them, had open meetings with them, so we've tried to involve all of our teachers in that particular thing. This time. Anything else you want to?
Well,
There's two or three little pieces that bother me, and I hope our legislature controls. Of course, one of the things that concerns us is state authorization of charter schools. And again, I don't want us to do what Washington's doing to us. And basically, that is Washington passes something and then says that you have to do it, you know. You've got an elected school board that deals with it day by day. So I hope we'll leave the school board in. We went through the process this year. I don't know whether it's still true or not, but the feds were providing up to $300,000 in startup funds to help charter schools start up. Again, follow the green. A lot of times you're seeing quite a few applications out here, but it needs to be reviewed so that we get what we...
Director Oldham, thank you for bringing that up. I've always been in support of locally controlled. If it's going to be a charter schools, the local school board controls that, because the local school board is elected by the constituents in that county and that district, and they should decide about that. That's my personal opinion. Also, too, I think you and I and all of us in this room know the most important thing in education is that classroom teacher, to have the best classroom teacher we can in that classroom. Now, the question is how we go about doing it. And I do trust, I think you do an excellent job, Director Odom, and your staff does an excellent job evaluating teachers and getting the best teachers in the classroom. The main thing is we got to be fair as we possibly can with the evaluation system and simpler. And I think what you pointed out too about the pay scale, I mean, Rutherford County is above the minimum. Some of these smaller counties, I represent 4 other counties besides Rutherford County, they're not. So the struggle is, commissioners, for the locals to come up with some money to help in that regard. And so it is important that education, to me, is the most important thing we do, because the quality of education, the quality of the students that we get, they get out and they get a high school diploma, they move on to post-secondary, and then they're going to get a job and they're going to be productive citizens. If we don't have a good education system, we don't have them prepared to get out, they're not going to get a job, and then they're going to be a drag on us, and they're not going to be productive citizens for the county commission. They're not going to be doing that. So education, to me, is the most important. And I think sometimes we get too complicated in education instead of get it back to a more simpler thing. The bottom line is the parents want to know their children are learning. The administrators want to know the teachers are teaching. That's the bottom line. Sometimes we get so complicated with all the testing that we do, we forget that. And I think we need to also pay attention to career and technical education. We have a great program right here in Rutherford County, and these young people that go through that career technical program, they're going to go on and they may use our TCAC, Tennessee College of Applied Technology. Now they can move on to that, and they're going to get out and get a job. Not every student is designed to go the university path. I've got 3 boys. One of mine's a fireman, and he's happy as a lark, and that's what he wanted to do. And so not everyone, and that's why we got to get guidance counselors back into doing guidance counseling, not just grading tests too. So I'm all for getting guidance counselors back into doing what they should be doing, applying students to the path they need to go. So thank you for the job you do. Feel free to contact us. It is a lot of things going on in education this year. There are always a lot of things going on in education. I would refer back to you, but I do agree with you that locals should control the charter schools. You've got an elected school board. That's what they're elected to do.
I hope you'll hang in there with Common Core this year. I looked today at, you saw the National Assessment of Educational Poverty, the NAEP, and I'll have to attribute some of that, folks, to we've always had curriculum standards. That is nothing new, and these were actually created by the National Governors Association, National Chief State School Officers. They don't tell you how to teach. They don't tell you what materials to teach. They're just some particular standards that you'd like kind of kids to know, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you don't have those standards, you're going to have to create some others, and Tennessee hasn't been the best at creating our own standards. That's one of the reasons we got in that problem. So we need to give this a chance. We need to give it a chance to go on. So please take a look at that. The virtual school, I know y'all looked at this some last year. This is that online school. Out of the K-8, which includes math, reading, social studies and language arts. When you look at the value added, there were 1,337 schools that took that test, that compile for that. The virtual school came in 1,337th. And the score, the value added there, zero. A zero score is a year in school is a year's gain in your education. They were at minus 26.6. We can do better than that in Tennessee, folks. And we need to do better than that. We need to demand it of other things that we're going to put public tax money into. We need to demand some kind of measure, be it voucher, be it virtual, or whatever it is, so we can have some comparison to see that we're spending our money wisely.
I appreciate it, Mr. Odom. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Odom?
Representative Sparks.
Real quick, I just wanted to ask, or just compliment you. I went and visited David Jury. You used to be my principal there, and you paddled me a couple times back in the day, I guess. I won't hold that against you. But you care. That's one thing I like about you. You care about this county. You care about those teachers and those students. But I often use the term disconnect. I do see a disconnect very often, and whether it's government, nonprofits, church, or whatever. But I want to compliment Emily Mitchell over there that you had her contact me, which was kind of smart. I'll give you some credit for that. But she's I guess the REA representative. Mm-hmm. But case in point about the disconnect, I had said, and I'd been kind of a critic of TEA. I said, how are you going to be an effective change maker? And we have 70 Republicans, and it's almost constantly being critical. And, her reaching out to me, sitting in the classroom, seeing some of what the pressure that some of these teachers are under, and these students, I couldn't imagine doing some of the curriculum some of these students are doing. I mean, I'm talking first graders under some of the pressure that they're under. But what I'd seen was a disconnect is I'd never seen the TA lobbyist. Never once did they ever come into the office and introduce themselves. Hey, Representative Sparks, here's some concerns we have. Ms. Mitchell took the time to do that and had me meet with some other folks and done the same thing with Representative White and Senator Tracy and others, and I respected that. But anytime you're having communication, dialogue is a positive thing, even though we may disagree with things. But I'll share what I'd seen the governor mention at his inauguration back in 2011. He quoted Thomas Friedman. He wrote the book, The World is Flat. He's an economist. And he talked about and the history has been, the government's been in the business of giving things away, just funding things. Now they're going to have to be in the business of taking things away. If not, the marketplace will do it for us. And, in all due respect to Commissioner Sandlin, it'd be nice to give all these people pay raises and stuff, but I'm telling you, we got people working for the state that qualify for food stamps. I mean, I couldn't believe up there what prison guards are paid, putting their life on the line. Prison guards don't have a lobbyist. I've never met a lobbyist for the prison guard industry. TDOT employees, the pay is so low. I was with the commissioner that day. We took the tour, bridge over Broadway, and look at some of this other, and I complimented for giving. There was a few guys that pay raise help truck drivers, and he said, Mike, look at this. He showed me his phone, and 2 guys were killed the day before, 2 contract workers, and a state trooper was injured on the side of the interstate. Those guys aren't making anything. And, it'd be nice to be able to write a check and stuff, but end of the day, my heart goes out to y'all. How you going to fund this judicial building over here? How you going to fund the growth? So, and I'm not trying to be mean, but sometimes I think people are kind of closed-minded. And I love you, Commissioner Jordan. You're passionate about education, but the path that we've been on all these years, to me, is just unsustainable. And if it's working, why isn't it working in D.C.? $28,000 per pupil. It's not working in California, and it's working in Rutherford County. We can say you're doing a good job for the value. You're getting a good value for the tax dollars. There's no doubt. But the virtual schools, I think that has some merit. And I brought that up when I was a commissioner. People look at you deer in the headlight look sometimes you bring it up, but Amazon's here because it's virtual. People shopping on there. I dealt with somebody from India this morning doing some work for me. We're in a global economy today. It's outsourcing, but I'm getting the job done. We've got to look at some of these things because you can't continue to spend $83 million at Stewart's Creek, even though the school looks great. $83 million. People can't continue to face tax increase. I mean, all due respect, y'all tax increase this year.
What's $83 million?
80 on the 3 projects over there, the 3 schools.
Oh.
We can't continue. I mean, you can continue to fund it, but you're going to continue to have to raise taxes. That's the bottom line. We got to think outside the box. I think the virtual schools have some merit. Yeah, on the front end, you're probably going to have a learning curve, but in 5 years, let's find out what those problems are and tweak it. I have a lot of respect for you. I get frustrated because it just seems like it's the same old system, and it's the same old problems. We're going to be back up here next year. Well, you may not be here, Commissioner Sandlin. I know you're not, but we're going to be talking about the same old problems. I may not be here. You never know. But I don't want to be here talking about the same old problems. Let's fix some things. And it's like TEA. That's the advocate for teachers. I never met him until Miss Mitchell really had called me and sat down and talked to me. But you got to have some dialogues. But like the governor said, $46 million increase in just the prisons, a lot of other problems like that.
I really appreciate you legislatures that did go into the schools for a day and walked with the teachers and that sort of thing. So my compliments to you. And you came from teaching Representative White, so you know. But thank you for doing that. Yes, thank you for doing that.
I want to be fair here, and I know last year I think I was fair then too, but I always think I'm fair. Perhaps I'm not. I am aware, however, and I think one of you, I believe Senator Tracy's already mentioned it. A lot of this changes, policies, whatever, came from the Department of Education. Did not come from the state legislature, House, or Senate. And I am aware of that. I think perhaps all of us need to remember that the teachers are going to blame somebody, and they don't elect the Department of Education. They have, however, asked, and you know what they've asked, and nothing has happened. We have been on a system since Frank Clement was governor, at least that long, of small, tiny, in many cases embarrassing, but nevertheless, raises given to teachers. And when I started teaching, which was back in the stone tablet days, I had the minimum rules and regulations memorized. I knew exactly how much money I was going to get every year because I had a family I needed to know. And then when I had a chance to get the master's, I had to have it. I had 2 girls. And then EDS and on up. That has been in effect for at least 5 decades. And now it is no longer in effect. Now, long term, let's talk money. Long-term view, and the mayor can speak to this if he wants to. I don't know. We haven't talked about this. The state is going to send us the same amount of money they've always sent us. That sounds wonderful. That sounds great. It won't mean a thing next year when they don't send us any more to fund those raises as the teachers go up the ladder. So, and what is being asked of us, of the local taxpayer, is, and the school board and the director, is that they come up with a policy where that can be funded some other way or not funded at all. Now, that means, of course, higher taxes. And the school board, as wonderful as they are going to pass that along to the funding body. And that's us. And then, Commissioner Sparks and others, we'll have to make a decision. Do we raise these people up? Do we give them raises in other years? Or do we just go with what the state? Now, that's not going to have an effect immediately, but it will next year, and it will in years to come. And frankly, I think we're very worried about that as to how we're going to fund that.
Commissioner Jordan, your point's very well taken. I will tell you, and you're exactly right, at the state level, priority needs to come into play. You know, we designed BEP 2.0, and I was there. We did design that BEP 2.0 to dial up where the state can contribute more to the LEAs, to the local LEAs. So we can do that. Right now, I think it's about 65-35. State brings in sends in about 65%. The locals put in about 35. We can dial it up to 75-25, and the mayor can shake his hand if I think that's right. I believe that's about what we can dial it up. Right now, we're staying at about 65-35. So there's a way for the state to do that. with budgetary measures, you know, we're going to have to make decisions. As I pointed out very beginning this year with a tight budget, we're going to try to do that. The governor has committed to give teachers a raise. To do that, you're going to have to send more money, in my opinion, to the local LEA. You're going to have to. The local governing body, especially in these smaller communities where the sales tax revenue is not extremely high, they're pretty much limited to what they can do. So there is a mechanism for us to do that to a state level. I think that as we move on down that path, that'll be something that you're going to see when we put that in. That's what it was designed to do, to turn the dial up to 75-25.
You're a former teacher yourself, Senator, and I would admit, I think we all would, that there's a lot of critical things. Facilities are critical. Parents are absolutely critical. Whether they're hungry when they get to school or not is critical. But the most important thing is that school teacher. And you just said it a minute ago, that you wanted the very best teacher in that classroom, and so do I. But I think we're going to have to agree, I want to keep them there. I don't want them going to Georgia. I don't want them saying, well, what's the use? There's no sense in me getting more training. I don't want to be a principal. I want to be a teacher. And I want to keep them there, but if I had a time limit, I am absolutely sure I am way over it. And I apologize to the committee. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Jordan, I have some figures in front of me. Let me just share those with you. The governor still feels like that the top priority in this legislative session is education. It will take $55.8 million to fully fund the Tennessee BEP program. And so that's one of the challenges we face as we come back this year. But over the last 3 years, the General Assembly has voted to put $130 million into, now these are recurring dollars, recurring funds for teacher salaries, which translates to about 50,000 average statewide. Some districts may not be there, but about 50,000 is what the average statewide for a teacher. It's not just education, like Representative Sparks was talking about. We have to balance, you know, all of the state employees, which we have over 2,000. Another issue facing us that Director Odom talked about, he briefly mentioned about the consolidated retirement plan. We have a federal mandate that was just passed by Congress that's facing us because of we are at about 92% funded in Tennessee Consolidated Retirement Plan. We're ranked in the top 5 in the country. Utah is ranked number 1. There's some states, like Illinois, that are only about 32% funded. And they're issuing IOUs to people that they owe money to, the state. What happens if a state goes bankrupt? But we have to fully fund, based on this new law, we're going to have to get it up to 100% because the federal government is dictating to us that if something happens, from a catastrophic standpoint, they want to make sure that all those people get their due retirement when it comes due. So that's a whole other issue. And then we have TennCare, which is the largest beast, I guess, in our budget, continues to consume more and more dollars. We've got to come up this year having to fund 52,000 new people who will become eligible for TennCare, which equates to about $403 additional million we've got to come up with to help fund those people who are in dire need of health care. So it's going to be a juggling standpoint. I think Director Odom feels comfortable at this point, but I promise you that this delegation will work to make sure that the teachers are taken care of in Rutherford County.
Gooch.
I have a non-controversial question. Several local communities in our state have passed local ordinance prohibiting the sale and distribution of pseudoephedrine. It's my understanding that the Attorney General has cited certain constitutional issues with these type of local ordinances. The communities that address these issues are greatly plagued by meth labs, the poison that affects their communities. Murfreesboro may not have a large problem, but other counties and cities around us do. Do you see the legislature taking any action as far as allowing communities to make such ordinance if the state is unwilling to do so?
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. Yes, I think there will be numerous bills dealing with pseudoephedrine or Sudafed, and that's the product in there that does meth. It is a major problem, and I've got 4 other counties besides Rutherford County. These rural counties, it's really a problem. So I do see the legislature addressing it. There's numerous, I know 3 or 4 different bills that they will be looking at to either do it by prescription, and how they do the prescription. There's going to be different tweaks in how they do that. I know Director Gwynn is going to be involved in that on TBI. I've talked to him about that. He's very concerned about it. It is something that our law enforcement folks are really having trouble dealing with. So to answer your question, yes, there will be legislation dealing with it. I don't know which one will be out in front to see which one will be moved, but there'll be different types of legislation to deal with it to curtail that. I do see that.
Commissioner, I agree with Senator Tracy. I don't know which direction it will take, but from what I'm hearing from people in the industry, from legislators, from lobbyists, it's a shame that it will have to be statewide application if we remove it from the shelves, and it goes behind the counter, requires a doctor's prescription in order to make that purchase. And it's a shame that so few have ruined it for all those who actually need it. But from what I'm hearing, it's probably going to go to that, as they've done in other states. It would have to be statewide application, not allowing one county to do it and others, because everybody, it's just like other states are going to run across the border.
But it would be addressed.
Yes, sir, it's going to be addressed this year.
One of the recent challenges that we've had to deal with at state level with regard to the manufacture of meth, which is what that legislation is seek to in some part remedy, is the idea or the notion that putting those kinds of drugs as behind the counter to make them prescription so they're less available and as part of the necessary ingredient for the manufacture of meth. I believe, according to the TBI, over 80% of the meth manufactured that is in the state of Tennessee is manufactured in Mexico and brought to Tennessee. So the question then is, if 20% of the meth that we're talking about is actually manufactured in Tennessee, to what extent does a bill like that curb the meth problem that already exists? And so it's just a question that needs to be debated and answered, because one of the things, unfortunately, that the General Assembly does on occasion is doesn't take seriously the unintended consequences related to passing a piece of legislation. We've got great intent. Everyone up there, all 132 members, really does seek to the interest of their district and the state, but sometimes that interest is a blind spot to the unintended consequence of passing legislation. So, myself, I want to be very, very careful about passing a piece of legislation like that when the result is that we never dealt with the problem. And the problem is we have a serious meth problem in Tennessee, whether it's 80% from Mexico or 20% for Tennessee or not. What does putting it behind the counter resolve? And that's what we need to find out.
Now, who said 80% comes from Mexico?
My understanding is that was a TBI statistic, and I'll find out exactly where that came from, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Senator Sparks.
Yeah, good question, Commissioner Gooch. We done the Fusion Center tour with TBI a couple of years ago, and I remember what the director had mentioned. He said, we've had this meth problem. We've had this, now we got this prescription drug problem. He said, now we got this human trafficking problem, you know. And you can't legislate yourself out of these problems, because if that was the case, there's what's 3,000 bills filed when I first got up there. I think they're limited to 1,500 now. You can't legislate yourself out of these problems. To quote the governor, he said that we're facing a drug epidemic. When you use the term epidemic, that's pretty powerful. Drug epidemic. That's what the governor said. Okay. One thing I'll compliment Commissioner Jordan for is, always showing up at that GED graduation and showing up with those at that jail, because that $46 million increase in our corrections, 70% of that's drug related. So that's roughly $32 million is spent on a drug problem. There's your teacher money right there, Commissioner Jordan. 32 million, you can do a lot of money with $32 million. If we can't get this drug problem, to me, that's the biggest issue facing the state of Tennessee. It's facing those teachers. It's facing those kids that's coming in. If their dad's in jail, their dad's got a prescription drug problem. I don't know how we get a hold of it. It's sad, until the community gets more involved and try to turn these things around. I think it's getting worse. You try to bring optimism and talk about positive things. That's just, when you're in politics, that's what you got to sell it, and act like everything's great. Sometimes things aren't always great, and we're paying for these things, and it's just sad. Well, it's sad for me when I go to that graduation and watch those inmates, and there's nobody else there. Jordan, that's why I give you high marks. I complimented you on WGNS today. I don't know if you heard about that, but I complimented you. And I appreciate your heart being over there in it. Most people don't give a rat's tail about some of that stuff, if you think about it. That's $25,000, though, that it costs you to house an inmate. Yeah, they're a bunch of knuckleheads sometimes, but why not see what some of these issues are? If it's a drug addiction problem, try to help some of that on the front end. And every one of y'all should go to that GED graduation. Go. And Sheriff, I hope you invite them. If your sheriff's still here, I hope you invite all these commissioners to go. But I'll also mention that you got county employees here that use an outhouse for a bathroom. We can talk about raises all day long, but when you got people with poor working conditions like you do, we need to take care of some of those areas. And those guys, there's no lobbyists in Nashville or the county for those guys. I'm talking about solid waste is what I'm talking about. Those guys don't make nothing. Nobody really speaks up for them. Think about it. People drive by every day and turn a blind eye. They don't care about that. But they're going to go advocate for all these things up here. Somebody making $50,000 a year, that's pretty good money, Senator. Somebody over here using an outhouse with no health insurance in 7-degree weather tomorrow, it's pretty bad. It's sad for me when I see that exists in Rutherford County. I don't mean to step on no toes or anything, but it's sad that exists in this county, one of the most prosperous counties in the state of Tennessee. It's some sad times when I see that. Thank you. Sorry for the rant. I don't mean to get fired up. I'm sorry.
To answer your question, Commissioner Gooch, there's been numerous people already in our offices talking about proposed bills that will come. I agree with Senator Tracy and Senator Ketchum. There'll be 4 or 5 probably filed, and again, we'll see what comes out of, because we'll have to compromise and work together on that. So, but it is in the making, and it will be addressed this session.
There are no objections from the committee. Commissioner Stevens asked to bring up something tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of questions for our delegation. Motlow Community College is in my commission district, and I have been working with Dr. Apple and others there over the last year, but she told me the other day that there are jobs open in our manufacturing places for the mechatronics graduates, but we don't have enough people coming through the program to fill those jobs. And one way that we can improve that is to allow the students who are enrolled in the mechatronics program to use the lottery money immediately upon graduation for the summer session. Right now they have to wait until August before they can get the lottery scholarship money. And she was telling me that if they could go ahead and use that scholarship money in the summer, they could graduate sooner and become productive in the workforce, making some pretty good money. So I was going to ask if any of you would be willing to sponsor that bill, and then also ask the committee if they would send a resolution through the commission to ask our delegation to support this for those students.
Very well.
Our delegation, there were 3 of us of the delegation that spoke at Motlow for breakfast the other morning, and Dr. Apple hit us up with that. So I'm sure that that'll probably be both chairman of Senate and House Education that will end up carrying that. But it's I can rest assured, Commissioner, we'll be on top of that because we think that Megatronics program is excellent. And really doing a great job with our local high schools and working in conjunction on the private sector with Bridgestone.
Thank you, Senator. Mayor Burgess, do you have anything for the delegation?
I'm just going to mention one thing. We still have work to do on defining what's an appropriate public notice and through which media it's available and acceptable. So we haven't made any real progress here yet. I don't know how to suggest it, but we still don't even know what a newspaper of general circulation is. So the legislature needs to use some of your wisdom and assistance to help us sort of decide how we can work together to really put this to bed here. It's important, and it's continuing difficulty for all of us at every level.
I think Commissioner Stevens had something else.
So I had one more question, and that was about the interchange at Rocky Fork Road. The people in Smyrna are very interested in getting this interchange built in Smyrna. The traffic on Sam Ridley is bumper to bumper, and a new interchange would alleviate some of that problem. It would also open up a vast amount of commercial development, which would create jobs, and it would also help the county with the tax revenue that it generated on the commercial property tax and from sales taxes. And I was just wondering if somebody could explain to me the status of that project and if we can do anything to help get that moving.
Thank you, Commissioner. We had a meeting today with the mayor of Smyrna, city manager Harry Gill. We had 3 folks from TDOT today. We had a long presentation discussing the interchange. So it's in the progress to work. It's when you're dealing with an interstate, it's federal and state. So we have to work within the federal guidelines, and they presented all that issue to the local folks at Smyrna today. They're very interested in doing it. They're going to move forward. I think we had a very productive meeting today. I'll yield to Representative White and Representative Sparks. I thought the meeting went very well. I thought we've moved the ball way on down the field today to see what we need to do. And I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Representative White speak on.
After sitting in the meeting with Mayor Reed and Harry Gill, they are ready to push forward. They're ready to, of course, TDOT stated that, you know, it's a 12-year process, basically, by the time everything gets rolling. So this is not going to happen tomorrow. I think everyone realizes that. But I will say the leaders of Smyrna and the council and the mayor and the city town manager, they're really pushing forward. They were asking TDOT, you know, okay, what do we do now? What's our next step? How do we get this even on an agenda to even look at to see when we could, you know, start and what is the next process to it. So they're really pushing for it, and, you know, we will do whatever. I know Representative Sparks, myself, Tracy, and the whole delegation will do whatever it takes to get that on the agenda to look to see where it needs to go next.
Yeah, good question, Commissioner Stevens. I think it was a productive meeting. Anytime you can sit down with TDOT, Paul Diggs, and others to try to find some solutions. But years ago, I was on the planning committee there, and I can remember around 03, 04, I believe it was, a representative of TDOT talking about the traffic on Inland Springs, that it would surpass Sam Ridley Parkway, which surprised me. But, you know, it all gets down to funding. I mean, you got to find the money. It's like same issues y'all have, same issues we have. You know, Tennessee's ranked number 1 in the country when it comes to roads, and something I'm proud of. I serve as vice chairman of transportation, but this morning I stopped over there by Kmart, and there was a few people standing there at the little bus pavilion that's lacking a bus pavilion, and met with MTA about trying to see what could be done about that. But out there in that 10-degree weather, talking to a few of those folks is taking that mass transit, trying to find ideas to improve mass transit, because I-24 is congested, and any of us that travel that, it's pretty rough. You know, Jefferson Pike, I mean, look how long Jefferson Pike has taken. They're in right-of-way acquisition phase now on Jefferson Pike, but they were saying their projects average 12 years. 840 took 26 years. You know, we were at that ribbon cutting with that. Wheels of government often turn slowly, but, you know, we got to look at the Federal Highway Administration and the lack of funding at that level. You know, they're $17 trillion in debt. You know, it's just going to be hard to fund all these projects, and we can't give up. We got to continue to move forward. And Mr. Gill today had he had some good insight with it. But I always like what Mr. Gill said years ago, and I'll borrow that quote. He says, "Oftentimes where you stand is from where you sit." So where we often sit and where you sit, Commissioner McIndoe and the other commissioners, it's about funding. How you going to fund these things? And at the state, we got to find ways to fund it. It's rather difficult sometimes to try to make these ends meet and find solutions for them. But we're going to try to move forward with it and try to be optimistic about it. And we just dealt with a lot of growth. You know, like Chairman Tracy said earlier, we will probably be number 4. Is it Hamilton County with growth? You know, so. Got a lot of challenges.
Well, we appreciate you all being here on behalf of the steering committee, and I guess even on the full commission. We appreciate you all, and thank you so much for your support and for your service to the county and to those constituents. And we thank you all. It's always, anytime I talk to anybody in Nashville, that truly works up there in different departments and agencies, they talk about what a great delegation we have. And I appreciate all the hard work that you do and serve our county well. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Next, Commissioners, we need to fill a vacancy on the Insurance Committee for the employee representative. We have one application before us. Virgil Gammon. I believe you all received a booklet on him.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on the motion? All's in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
let's thank Mr. Gammon for his nearly 37 years of service to our county and for presenting the most thorough resume that I believe any of us have ever read.
I believe I ran out of ink. Thank you, Mr. Gammon. Next, we need to fill 4 vacancies on the Public Building Authority. We have received 5 applications for these 4 vacancies. Mr. James H. Bailey, Steve Waldron, Phil Griffin, Stan Vaught, and Edward S. Porterfield. In this scenario, I think we would have each of these applicants in that order come up and address the committee, share anything they'd like to say. Call on Mr. Bailey. I don't know if he's here. I don't see him in the audience. Steve Waldron. We'll see Steve. Mr. Griffin.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you all for letting me come before you tonight to address the application for this particular board. Many of you know me. You know I have a strong passion for local government.
Just turn it around.
This way.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sandlin. Commissioner Sandlin. I'll start over. Again, thank you all for letting me come before you tonight and address you about this open position that I've applied for. As I said, many of you know me, know I have a strong passion for local government, specifically, based on my education and experience, which is what I think makes me a strong applicant for this position. Just looking to give back and serve Rutherford County in any way that I can, and I think that experience would help me to do so. Come recommended from Sheriff Robert Arnold and Circuit Court Clerk Laura Bowling, two of our officials who would be affected through this board potentially as they oversee two of our public buildings. So again, thank you, and I would appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions any of you may have.
Questions for Mr. Griffin at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stan Vaught and Edward S. Porterfield.
Guys, for giving me this opportunity to appear before you tonight. I am a commercial and residential contractor. I've got a lot of experience in that, in budgeting, building, construction, so forth. I've managed two different multi-million-dollar companies as far as construction, residential and commercial goes, building apartment communities and so forth. And I believe that my experience would be valuable to the building authority. And really, that's all I have to say.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Porterfield? See none. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Porterfield.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Any, do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we nominate all 5 and vote for 4, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Ms. Becky, will you please call the roll?
I'd like to explain my vote first. I'm going to vote for Mr. Porterfield because he was here to speak tonight, and Mr. Waldron and Mr. Bailey is reapplying. Mr. Griffin was here, spoke, but I'm going to have to abstain from voting for him due to doing business with him right now as a consultant. That's my vote.
Commissioner Farley?
Bailey, Waldron, Vaught, Porterfield.
Mr. Waldron, Mr. Vaught, Mr. Waldron, Mr. Vaught, Mr. Porterfield, and Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Porterfield, Mr. Vaught, Mr. Waldron, Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Griffin, Mr. Waldron, Mr. Vaught, and Mr. Porterfield.
Mr. Waldron, Mr. Griffin, Mr. Vaught, and Mr. Porterfield.
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Waldron, Mr. Vaught, and Mr. Porterfield.
Mr. Porterfield and Mr. Waldron received 7 votes. Mr. Vaught received 6 votes. Mr. Bailey received 4 votes, and Mr. Griffin 3 votes.
Thank you, Ms. Becky. Mr. Porterfield, Mr. Waldron, Mr. Vaught, and Mr. Bailey will be recommended to the full commission for the vacancies on the Public Building Authority. Thank you, everyone, for applying for this board. Next, we need to announce a vacancy on the Conservation Board of Chuck Clark. And then next, ask Mayor Burgess to talk to us about the delinquent tax property sale. You also have an item on their iPad for this.
This is an item that where we're requesting an opportunity where we can put in place a mechanism for disposing of delinquent tax property. You know, we have public sales every year on delinquent tax properties, and for the last 2 years, there have been some properties that have not been purchased, no bids. So we have 3 properties from the previous year. We have 7 properties this year. After those properties are not sold there, we still have to wait a full year after the public sale before we can actually dispose of them. So right now, only 3 of the properties are ripe for disposal. And next year, there will be 7 more. So this seems to be a increasing frequency of properties that we have to do something with. So this bill that you see here is recently passed last year, May of 2013, that will allow the county mayor and 4 other commissioners to be a committee of 5 that would be given the ability under the terms of this agreement, this statute here, to dispose of these properties. Not to be less than you can't sell it for less than the taxes that are due, the penalty, the cost, and the interest. It has to be at least that much, but you have other flexibility of parameters. So what I'd like for you to do, the steering committee, I want to suggest this, and you can choose to do what you want to, but what I'd really love for us to do, if we can get legal opinion that this would be appropriate, for you to allow the property management committee and the mayor to have this authority that's outlined in this statute. If that's not proper, and we cannot get a legal opinion from our county attorney and maybe the state attorney general, I'd like for you to approve and recommend that we allow 4 members of the property management committee to be selected by them, that committee, and the mayor to serve as this committee of 5 members to dispose of this property from time to time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm with the mayor on that, but I will go ahead and put in form of a motion that that the property management, I think that's appropriate, and then the mayor be put on that for this situation here, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll make sure that motion and second gives the flexibility in case we cannot do.
Well,
the
we'll need
full-
legal opinion on that, and I put that in form in my
Okay.
motion, but I agree with that, though. I think it's
Can't
proper
get-
for property management.
Complete and unequivocal permission for the full committee to serve, we will allow the selection of 4 members of that committee to provide that function. That's the way we like for the motion to be, Ms. Shelton.
Any discussion on the motion? All's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any other business? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.